Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. My name is Crown and today we are going to have some more stories that I hope that you will enjoy. But before we start, it would be so much appreciated if you would subscribe to the channel, like the video if you enjoyed it, and maybe leave a comment down below. These simple clicks would mean a lot to the future of this channel and really reward the effort that I put in every day. And now, without further ado, let's go! First story. Cappy tries to rip me off $2, protracted court battle, and large civil penalty for you. I was walking home after staying at work really late. Walking through the bar scene, I saw a cab and was so tired, so I decided to take it home. The first time I'd ever decided to do so. Short, aggressive ride where he's tailgating, honking, swearing, and aggressive as heck, despite it being a sleepy city. Fare $6.40 and I give him 20, and I ask for 12 back. Cabby gives me $10 from a giant wad of money and says sorry, he doesn't have any change. Okay, the dude thinks I'm drunk because he picked me up outside of a bar, and he thinks he deserves a better tip even though the ride was like 3 minutes. I say, what do you mean you don't have any more? You're a cabbie, and I just saw your giant wad of cash. He persists and I say no. You're driving me down the street to that pizza shop, then we're going to get change. He says he won't, and when I ask, he refuses to give me his name, and then gives me a menacing get the heck out of my cab, looking like he's going to punch me in the face. The dude's definitely a tough guy, and pretty scary. Think short, stocky henchman type with bust silver hair and a leather jacket. So I leave, but not before catching his cab number as he speeds off. Okay, it's the principle of the matter. This guy's doing this to drunk kids all night and probably making a lot of money by intimidating and victimizing these customers of a public service. Screw that. I call the cab company and get my full $10 back, but it takes a bunch of harassment and several months to finally get it. Screw that. I call the cab company's director, who couldn't care less and who flat out told me he believed the cabbie story over mine. So not only is this nonsense happening, but it's being enabled and the complaints aren't being registered. Screw that especially. I tell him that if he doesn't take any course of action whatsoever, then I'll be forced to take it up with the city's Transportation Oversight Commission that oversees all this stuff, and he basically dares me to do so. Okay, so I enter into this ridiculously arduous process, where after reading up on the local laws, I write a major complaint to the Public Commission and request they be fined under certain articles. A couple months later, I get a response letter. Cab company hires this sleazy lawyer who claims I'm lying about everything and had all this malicious intent. He claims I demanded change and the cabbie did not immediately procure them, but then did seconds later. And at that point I was so fuming mad that I just wanted to exact revenge. He calls my character and credibility into question completely. The letter was so amateur and there was so many transparent lies in it that it was both laughable and just sad. So I went to my preliminary hearing, which I took to mean was just like filling out paperwork or at most a private deposition or something. Nope, everyone's there, including the cabbie, the bedraggled secretary who sent my refund, the cab company's director, the sleazy lawyer, a court reporter, and a judge. Ridiculous cheap suits all around for the cab entourage. The in-person sleaziness of the lawyer did not disappoint. Think bad pinstripe suit and pink tie, slicked back hair, and pencil mustache. All resting on a sweaty and anxious big man whose only apparent mode in trial is a combination of snideness and fox suspicion. The cabbie's giving me threatening looks during the whole thing, and I'm frankly a little scared he's going to do something to me afterward. As a bonus, the judge is relatively young, extremely polite, thoughtful, level-headed, and patient. We gave our stories, and the cabbie gives this really terribly acted story of how I intimidated him into getting more change, become furious, and so on. But he can't even keep his facts together and keeps stumbling over his obviously rehearsed lines. Sleazy lawyer tries to poke holes in my very simple and coherent story like it's a Hardy Boys novel. It was dark, you couldn't have seen the denomination of his money. It's the cheesiest thing you ever seen. Meanwhile, I'm trying to cross-examine him while basically learning on the job how to be a hack lawyer at a crappy municipal hearing. And I even take a few jabs at the cabbie for lying on the stand that were met with various objections. You could cut the tension between me and this cabbie with a knife, and I made a lot of awkward mistakes because of that. But overall, it went pretty well. A funny mistake I remember is that the lawyer made some objection, and I put it in and said that's not even a good point. And the judge cracked a smile in agreement and then told me I could not be subjective during the hearing. The judge makes a ruling a few months later, noting that the cabbie was clearly not credible, and orders the cab company to pay $1,500 civil penalty to the city for various infractions: fraud, not providing reasonable service, and not identifying himself, if I recall. Sweet, I think. But then months later, the lawyer issues an exception to this ruling, which I did not know could occur at around 9 p.m. the night it's due. The exception brings up all these reasons that they shouldn't be fined. Example, there was precedent for this fine before, and also attacks my credibility once again regarding details of the story, basically threatening to undo the ruling if I didn't respond. I get notice of the filing via email and frantically write up an official response to exceptions, which was required to address these issues. And I submit it just under midnight. Months later, I think a total of 1.5 years since the incident, after several filings and correspondences, the judge examines the new material and rules that the $1,500 fine stands. Got any change now, jerk? Next story. Careful, I'm armed. This happened about 1 year ago. Now that all the dust has settled, I can spit it all out. About a year or so ago, my wife and I purchased a third home for rental income. I'm a 6'4" male of Moroccan and Middle Eastern descent. I'm commonly mistaken for Latino or light-skinned African American. This will be an important fact later on. So we were at a Lowe's in Pacoima. To my delight, there was a darker Moroccan kid working behind the paint counter. A very helpful, nice, respectful kid, maybe in his early 20s, so my family swings by Lowe's to pick up some stuff to start on a new house. My wife was picking out tiles with my son. I was talking to the kid behind the paint counter. An older Armenian man came up and asked the kid to get something down. And the kid had a line of people, so I told him, "Don't worry, I'm tall enough, I'll grab it." And the guy was very grateful. I walked back to the counter to pick up my order. I began loading it on my cart and boom, there it stood in all its glory. A wild Karen, taking it on the kid who said nothing. And it goes like this. I tell her, "Lady, the line's in the front, but pickup's here." "Oh great, another one of you people work here. Okay, I need you to take this to my car." "Hey kiddo, happy Ramadan, and I'll see you at service." I turn and this sharp pain twings my shoulder. "Lady, watch yourself. Don't do that again. You won't like the outcome." "Listen here, Juan. Load my stuff or I'll get your manager. Now! Lazy border jumpers, I hate these people." "Really, watch yourself, lady. I don't work here, and you just committed the symbol assault." "Okay, I'm sick of you wetbacks. I'm going to get the manager." "You do that, princess." By that time, my wife and kid came. I was loading up the second flatbed. After getting some brushes and rollers, we headed to the cashier. "There he is. He was the one that shoved me. I want him arrested." The store manager turned white. I had given him a speeding ticket and cut him a break the day before because he was late. "Call the cops now. I want him fired and arrested for assault." The store manager tells her, I can't do that." He looked at me and said, "I am so sorry." Karen then realized she had made a mistake. To cover myself, I called my chief and he sent a car out. What? This lazy Mexican jerk won't help me and you say sorry to him? And in walked another IT and a detective. They both say hi and ask me if I'm armed and I say yeah. They ask me if I'm okay, and I say yeah. They looked at Karen, then asked for the security tape. Everyone is pulled off the store floor and Karen has no idea what's about to happen. I'm not a normal cop. I live in a neighborhood I grew up in. I own property in the neighborhood I grew up in. And I treat everyone with respect. I serve my community and always have been. This lady was not from my community. As we are sitting in the manager's office, the office girl greets me and my wife and tells me thanks for helping her dad. Karen screams, "I thought you worked here." I stayed quiet. Another kid I actually dropped off once at Lowe's because his car broke down came in and asked me, "You okay?" I said, "Yeah, of course." And Karen was promptly handcuffed and walked out to the car. She then yelled out that I had a gun. The detective said, "He is supposed to. He's a cop." When I got on duty the next evening, I was called to talk to a detective. They wanted to know if I provoked the attack and did I draw my weapon at any time. I of course said no. I told them to finish interviews at the store and to take a look at the camera footage. They already had, but Karen stated that I drew my weapon and egged her on. They had to ask the question. Karen got 3 months for assault and 3 years probation. It could have been worse. She could have pulled that on a gang member around there. Be good to each other, guys, and know your rights. If you're in doubt of anything on a stop with law enforcement, ask for a supervisor. Next story. Be a racist and lie on your neighbors? Welcome to Eviction Population U. This is from 2011. Anyway, who has seen my posts knows that I used to work in a private security field. Not small cops, but highly trained and skilled in armed security. We worked on residential buildings and complexes that were very high-end, like $200,000 cars in a parking garages high-end. Like $200,000 cars in a parking garages high-end. Now places like this are Karen Central. Imagine apartments full of Karens and entitled teenagers. Now the company owner was awesome. A cop as his former regular, he understood what we faced. His advice was to be nice but put the hammer down if you have to, and don't take their nonsense. Also that if we didn't get 2 complaints a month about us for worthless crap, then we're not engaging the residents enough. So this is important to the revenge. Each supervisor had 10 to 15 properties under their control. Regular officers patrolled them, but we were in charge of helping with evictions, attending town halls on security issues, deciding how an officer patrols or updating what areas are being a problem or needing to be checked. I had 12. Now in this one apartment complex we had a couple always calling us. We had an emergency line open from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. When we got there they cried about their upstairs neighbor. It was a list of things they just changed. Stomping, music, talking, cooking smells, their dog going number 1 on the balcony and it driven onto theirs. Valid complaints if we found evidence. We never did. When they saw we were starting to question if they were real, they changed tactics and went racist. The couple above them were a sweet and wonderful middle-aged Asian couple. Husband was an immigrant, but the wife was a born and raised American. These racists had only talked to the husband, so they assumed, as all racists do, that they were both immigrants. So this couple started making comments like those Asians, and they are in America. Why can't they cook American food? And I'm afraid to be in a parking garage when one of them is driving in it. While it angered me, those comments alone weren't enough for an eviction. Only thing I could do was have my officers put exact phrasing in a report. I did ask the property manager about the comments and she said if they didn't say them to the residents and the residents did not complain, there wasn't much she could do. So I tried to think of some way to get them evicted. Not only were they lying to get a couple evicted, but were calling in false things and wasting the officers' time to respond. They didn't call just every once in a while. They called sometimes twice in one night, usually 5 to 8 times a week. 2 months later, the opportunity was handed to me. The Asian couple called me during the day and informed me that they were going out of the country, to China, for 2 weeks and no one would be in their apartment. They told me this just in case the other couple started complaining I would know they were lying. And they asked to check their door once a night to make sure it was locked and not broken into. I informed the Asian couple to not tell their neighbor, none of them, that they were leaving, and besides myself only tell the property manager. We had a patrol meeting that night. Officers did not work in one specific region, so I told them all my plans. I wanted them to respond each time they called and write down exactly what they said happened and also any racial terms no matter how minor. Mark the report urgently and send it out. We had an online system for all businesses. Emails, scheduled report submitting, you get the idea. So away we go. During those 14 days I complained 18 times. Everything was documented and I took it to the manager. She looked it over and said, "Let's evict them." Side note, the client gets charged more for emergency response than they do for regular patrols, meaning their lives were costing money. So there was no HOA because they were rentals. In the situation myself, the property manager and the tenants sit down at a table and the charges for eviction are read. If the eviction of security is related, then I say what violations have been broken and so on. Not opinions, just facts based on the reports which the tenants get a copy of. Then the tenants have a right to speak and ask questions. The property manager then decides what happens next. Do they stay or do they go? So they were sent a formal letter stating that they were facing eviction and had 10 days to set up a meeting. If not, the eviction will be processed. They set one up. I get there and the jerky couple and the manager are already present. The wife immediately digs into me because I was armed. Uniforms for those situations are a dress shirt, slacks, tie and one weapon. I just politely informed her that it was my uniform and not her call to make. She tried to say that she felt uncomfortable and wanted to reschedule, but the manager said, "This happens now or I will evict you." So they agreed to continue. Now for legal reasons, these sessions were recorded by video. That way the tenant cannot lie in eviction court or sue. In front of me were all 18 reports and went over each one. Time, date, who called the apartment number, and I also read out each line telling them to tell me what they feel is false and what is true. And the only thing they said was that the racial terms weren't true. At the end of each report, I basically said the report is accurate in the fact that the tenants in apartment XYZ were playing their music too loud, but are you claiming the comments about their race are false? And I got a yes answer every single time. About the seventh one, I think the wife caught one. She started complaining that I was dragging it out, and I just smiled politely and reminded her that this was my time and she had ample opportunity to object and ask me questions, but only after I was done. And then I went through the rest and let them build a defense. Then after I was done getting the admit to lies, I informed them that tenants in said apartment were actually out of the country at the time of those 18 reports and that the tenants provided proof that they were gone, and my officer checked the apartment one time a night and confirmed that it was empty. Then I smiled pleasantly and ended my part, but the look on their faces was a mix of anger and fear. They did not have a defense, basically saying myself and the manager were choosing immigrants over Americans. Oh, did I mention the manager is an immigrant? That went over like a hand grenade and a collection plate. Once they said that, she stopped it and told them she was. And that made matters worse because they said she was just taken up for her own kind. During this, I'm calm and collected. Inside my mind, I'm thinking, oh crap. After a few more racial remarks, a manager just stopped him and said guilty, and that she will process the eviction paperwork with the courts in the morning. Long story short, they were given 14 days. From what I heard, the judge gave them 30 until they called them a racial name. I was able to call the nice Asian couple and let them know that it was over, and that they didn't have to worry because we would no longer respond to calls about their apartment for the next 14 days until eviction came through, and the bad tenants left. But they were welcome to call anytime if they needed help or have an issue. Security officers want to help so badly but are limited by either laws, property management rules, or both. So it's nice to do some good. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.